Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Springboard at Home. This is the 14th edition. A lot of folks are sharing and watching the episodes over on Franchisors.com. That's actually gaining a lot of steam for the folks that can't join here live every week, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So be sure that you're taking advantage of that. We have another very good episode lined up for you today. We'll introduce today's guests momentarily, and we want to thank them so much for their time, as this is truly the franchise fam. Excuse me. This is truly the franchise fam, and they're taking the time. And also for you folks joining, we appreciate it. And investing in yourself is always smart. But today, we do not have to listen to Brad Fishman tell stories about Zach Fishman, because we actually have Zach making a celebrity appearance on Springboard at Home. So Zach, say hello to everyone. And how's everything in Chicago, man?
Hello, everybody. You guys can't see, but I'm actually sitting in the Don's office at the moment because he's away, and they decide to actually put air conditioning in this office and not in mine for some reason. That's how they're cutting costs around here. But really excited to see everybody today and to hopefully add some value. I'll try not to go off on too many tangents, but things in Chicago are doing okay. It's looking forward to hopefully getting out to a conference again soon. But for now, this will definitely do.
Yeah, and speaking on the conferences, as everybody knows, Springboard is going digital this year, and the experience is going to be really phenomenal. The structure is going to give you really a practical format to get some questions answered by mentors. I'll go ahead and toss over to Lane. We're going to talk a little bit about Springboard and a couple of top of the house updates. Then we're going to jump into the content today. So Lane, take it away.
Yeah, thanks. I also welcome Zach as our Jay Leno, Brad Fishman. We should have some, very succinct cutovers or cut acrosses, as Brad says. On the Springboard reboot, many of you have been tuning in each week, and we've been playing a game of Battleship with the city of Philadelphia until they played C-19 and sunk our big ship by precluding events over 100 people through next February, and certainly taking into account our Springboard event. So we are elated to bring you a virtual event. But what's interesting is we had Mary Thompson was on this show, and she gave some great advice that I wrote down then, but has become the North Star of trying to orchestrate and organize this event. And that's not try to just have a virtual version of what you would have on site, but try to figure out what your why is and what value you brought to people and what the people in the hundreds of hours of surveys have told you is the most valuable. And if you look at Springboard that way and flip the telescope, you see that people appreciate the ability, well, they like hearing from people, talking to them or at them. They also very much value the ability to talk about their own trials, tribulations, issues, challenges with folks that are similarly situated, with other franchisors and other people that are really knowledgeable in franchising. And after 9 months of certainly being benched from those kind of activities, we think that's the most important service that we can provide. And so we've opened Springboard up with the goal and hopes of populating what we're calling our relaunch pods. And we're asking folks to, in addition to when they sign up for the program, to attend whatever topical things are of particular interest to them, that they commit to 2-hour-long sessions, relaunch pod sessions. And there'll be a unique familial relationship between the pod mates. And we're going to try to bring that very high touch, very communicative, very centered on you approach that we've been commended for years on Springboard to a virtual event. And I think we're going to really have some great things. The blessing of this COVID is that people who we otherwise could not have secured in the past to participate in our education or in our mentoring activities are available. And you just have to trust us that we talk to a lot of people. We all know who's shaking and moving. You'll see today how we dial that in, but we will have an extraordinary experience for folks to be able to just talk through stuff with contemporaries that may or may not be in the same, funnel or area that they are in franchising, but we're all dealing with the same things. Expect to see less breakouts, less clinics, less general sessions, because I don't see people saying that that's what they, I see people suffering fatigue from others. I know I'm suffering fatigue from just watching even great people speak. So we'll have some of that because I think that hopefully there's new members of your team that may have no background in franchising. We want to make sure we still have some opportunities for them to learn. But what you should find is that every single topic that we have ever spoke on or talk on will be tilted toward COVID, and will be the COVID spin on it. I'm not going to just tell you how to have a sales department. That's maybe relevant a year ago, but we're going to try to tell you how the most effective and organized departments are through COVID and how they've changed. And so the one thing we've done, you can hear cars going by. The one thing we've done is we've tried to preserve the opportunity for the folks that need it the most. That is the emerging franchisors that I think have been most challenged through these economic times, through COVID. And so we are essentially waiving all fees for franchisors and providing it as a public service. So we're hoping lots of folks invite others from their team or from their companies to join, and that people participate and then watch after the fact, because these will be available after the fact for viewing. But most importantly, that they register and make sure we're aware of them to allocate them to a relaunch pod so that they can have the full experience, the full Springboard experience. And so with that, you'll be seeing lots more from Antonia, who's been sort of shepherding we're still looking for great ideas and success stories and folks that are able to translate that into education for the rest of the world. And you can certainly write Tony and tell us where you are. We hope that it's the same audience as we've always had, that are people that are mentors in some areas, maybe mentees or students in another, because I haven't yet met anybody who knows all things and everything. So I'm expecting it to be much more of that. So with that, I'd like Antonia, if could perhaps give us an update on Switchboard. Tony, first describe what it is so people who haven't tuned in before will know, and then tell us where we're at.
Sure. If it's your first time tuning in, but if it's not, we want to make sure you are not forgetting about Switchboard. It's our employment resource on Franchisors.com. You can upload your resume. We have over 130 resumes. You can post a job. We have currently over 40 live job postings. So if you know anyone looking, if anyone's been furloughed, or if you know a company hiring, please reach out. I'm going to put my email in the chat box. It is also free to post and to view our resume database. So we are just trying to help out during this time. So again, my email's in the chat. If you have any questions, please let me know. We're just here to help. So thank you.
Got it. So I will go ahead and give a quick formal introduction to our guests today. We have Jeff Dudan on the line. He's the CEO of Dudan Partners, founder of AvantaClean, which he grew to over 200 units. He sold it. He's the author of a brand new book, which I'm really looking forward to reading. It's called Discernment. It's out now. So I would definitely recommend folks on the line and folks watching online to go check that book out. Jeff can give us some more information on that here in a bit. We also have Josh Skolnick. He is he's the founder of Monster Tree Service as well as Redbox Plus. Phenomenal leader, phenomenal entrepreneur. It's been a pleasure getting to know him over the past, I guess, year or so. I think we met at Young Conference last year, so not quite a year, even though through COVID it has felt like 2 years. But gentlemen, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Springboard at Home.
Excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and kick it off with a question that I'd like both of you to run down just to give the audience some context. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and how did you find yourself in franchising? Josh, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so just like a lot of people in franchising, I've been a serial entrepreneur since an early age. Launched a business in 2008 under the brand Monster Tree Service with no prior industry experience. Realized that with good teams and leadership systems and processes in place, similar to franchise systems, what makes them successful, I was able to grow what I would consider in Eastern Pennsylvania an 800-pound gorilla within the tree care industry. Chose to franchise it, begin that process in 2011. And slowly began awarding franchises over the 2013, 2014 timeframe when everything was finally prepared and put together. Have successfully over, call it the last 6 years, awarded over 225 franchise units within that system. Had an opportunity in 2008 to acquire Redbox Plus, which was founded by a gentleman, Jeff Mateka, out of Winona, Minnesota, and is still involved with me in a minority position. And there was 4 franchise units in that business when I got involved just over 2 years ago, and we've grown it to 196 in the last 24 months. So currently managing over 400 franchise units between both of those brands, and recently acquired a roofing business with a few franchise locations called Mighty Dog Roofing. And I'm in the process of rolling out that in the fourth quarter of 2020, and expect to have some explosive growth as we continue the growth within the service space.
Kudos on all of the success, and can't wait to watch you grow that. Jeff, what about you?
Right. So my background, so I originally got into business by starting a painting business while I was in college in Boone, North Carolina at Appalachian State. And it was a student housing apartment painting business. And we did well with it. And then a buddy called me from South Florida and said, hey, this hurricane has hit down here in 1992. We could use some help. So I went down to South Florida and I cut my teeth in the insurance restoration business. Coming out of there with 3 partners in 94, moved up to Central Florida, started a business, and then moved back up to the Carolinas to start our second location in 95. And we became a national restoration concern, responding to disasters, doing fire, water damage in the Caribbean, Canada, the US. And as we grew it, I bought out my partners, and I bought my last partner out in 2004. In 2005, we responded to Hurricane Katrina, and we set up a run down there for about 5 years, doing a lot of government contracting and helping the people recover from Katrina. But I was on my way back, and I remember I was in an RV, and I was missing my son's first football season. He was 7 years old. And I said, our business has grown so much. And if I look at all my peers, they're on the road all the time. We were doing business in California and Texas and just all over the place. So I decided to commit to a franchise model because I felt like it would be a way that we could grow our business. And so I took a perfectly good restoration business doing tens of millions of dollars a year, and I threw it away in favor of a franchise model. So we sold all of our locations around the Southeast in 2006, 7, and 8 under a franchise model. In 2009, we launched our franchise model through a broker group to the public, and we ended up with a couple hundred locations in 2018 when I sold that business to Home Franchise Concepts out of Irvine, California. Along the way, started and been involved in some other brands. We started a company called Mobot, which is a robotic mowing franchise that's really getting great traction this year. I think we've done 35 units this year, and we're kind of a company that's a little bit ahead of its time, but now picking up momentum. I've also acquired a company called Rockbox Fitness, which is a fight club and a nightclub. So I've got my hands into the fitness industry. And then my brother, who was the CFO of the Carolina Panthers, he helped lead the sale of the Panthers from the Richardson family to the Tepper Group. And after Advanaclean and after that sale, we got back together and we launched Dudan Partners. So we're a consultancy and kind of a family office investment company. We're looking for brands to invest in, and we do some consulting to emerging brands and things like that. Also have a franchise sales organization called Frandevco, and have my hands in a few other things in the service side in the franchise industry.
And as if you weren't busy enough, you also just launched the book. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Josh, talk about the mix of your brands. How have you fared throughout the pandemic? Has this been, obviously it's been a tough time for everyone, but have you remained largely open? And just what does the mix look like across your brands, and what has it looked like over the past 5 months, just to set the table for the conversation to come?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. We were very fortunate that both Monster Tree Service and Redbox Plus were deemed essential businesses. But like many companies back in mid-March, when COVID really started to hit the shores of the U.S. in a big way, there was a lot of concern for about a week to 2 week period as a lot of our public officials try to figure out what they were going to do and what they were going to deem essential with all the various lockdowns and such. We retained about 93% of our locations remained open through the duration of COVID, and we've seen a tremendous increase in sales across the board. And even on the franchise development side, we saw a big uptick in leads. And I think a lot of that was largely in part to some of the brick and mortar locations that were heavily affected, that a lot of the lead flow that they were accustomed to managing shifted over into the service space. So it's been a fantastic experience for us. The pandemic really, for a lot of our franchisees, has instilled an additional level of confidence in themselves as they saw a big increase in business and were willing to make larger investments into their businesses to take the next step, whether that be opening up another location or adding additional equipment. We're fortunate in both of my brands that we're currently selling with, that we don't have any brick and mortar locations. We just have storage facilities for our equipment, and we go out to actual job sites to perform the services. So at this point, we've got 100% of our franchisees operating, growing, and just having explosive growth.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. One thing I want to ask both of you: you have been involved in many different ventures. We had a very brief chat, although I think it was really more a friends gathering as we did a call to prep for this. But would love to know, talk about some of the early mistakes that you guys made as leaders of emerging franchise organizations, because now making mistakes, it's only going to amplify because it is a tough climate, and a lot of folks aren't as fortunate as you to have, Josh, for example, businesses that have fared quite well during this. But what were some of the early mistakes that you made that some of the folks should avoid, especially here during a pandemic time? And Jeff, we'll start off with you.
Sure. I did not get involved with the industry early enough. And there are so many resources within the IFA, within resources like Springboard, the franchise family. And for us, coming from a business that was, and I see this today with emerging brands, we had a very successful business. It was not a franchise business. And, trying to navigate this, how do I turn this into a franchise? Who do I need to talk to? And you find yourself to some level of consultant. But I think really making the commitment to get out to the conferences, to show up and just immerse yourself in the various events that are available, like Springboard, like the IFA. These things that are online now are even an easier opportunity to get access to some of the people. So I think while we did innovate with our brand in a couple of ways that I think were meaningful, particularly in the way that we acquired customers, call center, our take on marketing, the things, some of our national account strategies, we did innovate a little bit. And looking back on it, if we maybe some attorneys might have told us not to do it the way we did it back then. So we created some competitive advantage in that way. But at the other end, it took us many years longer than it would have if we would have got around the right people and picked up a mentor or two.
And I'll add to that, Ryan, that early on in my franchise experience, Jeff was actually somebody who I met at one of the unconferences out in Salt Lake City. And at that time, we had probably about 10 franchisees. And I remember taking time to, talk to Jeff and pick his brain. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that in franchising, people are really willing to help. And they're willing to offer advice and are extremely approachable. So, for emerging brands coming into the franchising space, number one, understand it's a very small community. Everybody knows each other, and you just have to be willing to, walk up to those people that might have done something ahead of you that could potentially give you a little nugget. It's one of those phrases you hear often in franchising, is taking a nugget away from any of the conversations that you're having. But, that was one of the things I did. And I get asked, one of the questions I get asked a lot for everyone on the call is, where did you get your business experience? And a lot of it's self-guided, but I'll never forget in my teenage years, while my friends were, chasing high school parties, I was out chasing clients that I serviced with landscape services at the time to take them out to dinner on a Friday and Saturday night because they might have been a CFO of a company or were a branch manager at a bank or whatever it might be. They were in a C-level position that I could, bleed as much information out of them and find ways to apply that to my own business. But there's no shortage of leads in this industry for people to really grow their concept. And, there's no shortage of information that's willing to be shared with you. And more importantly, competition is healthy. And like Jeff would tell you in his space, in Advanced, for example, in a restoration, there's a lot of people that do that. I mean, for me in, tree care, fortunately, we're the first and only tree care offering in the franchising space. And, we're not intimidated by others that want to get into the space, because we recognize that, we've become a leader within our space. And, everyone really needs to set out with that mindset is, what are they going to do to become the leader in the space that they're in?
Yeah, so there's one thing that I actually wanted to pipe in and ask you guys, because, there's you two are like the stars as it relates into the broker networks and all that. And a lot of your brands have seen a lot of really amazing growth. And I think that some of that can be related to the broker networks. And I think that one question I have is, at what point did you guys decide that the broker networks was a viable place for you guys to start growing in? And, what should brands be evaluating when they're deciding to get involved in that? I think that it isn't necessarily limited to the home service space, but just kind of curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I've honestly never asked. And we'll start with that. And I want to dig into franchise sales a little bit with you both, because you guys are gurus and as it relates to that. So we'll start with you, Josh.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the success that we've experienced through broker networks has been largely in part to the way that we've prepared the concept for growth. Investing in resources and increasing the level of confidence of the consultants that are going to send you leads, to know that you've got the people in place to make their candidates successful. And that's one of the things that we've done a really good job of, is making sure that we're growing our internal staff a minimum of 6 to 12 months ahead of the growth curve. And that's a mistake that I see a lot of brands do make, is that they come into some of the networks and they talk about, their focus is to try to get as many leads as possible, and they want to open as many franchisees, but they don't have the systems in place yet to necessarily support that type of growth. So I think, really investing in your brand to make sure that the people are there to, onboard franchisees and have a high level of success is going to really help you in that regard, because, people can read through the BS if you're just feeding them a line of, we'll get it done, or we'll take care of your people when you send them to us. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, and it's something that both I and Jeff have done really well in any of our businesses. And I'll let you sort of dovetail on that, Jeff, because you've had a lot of success with consultants as well.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. There are a lot of talented brokers and consultants out there in the network that are really looking to help you and inform you if you're an emerging brand and you are just figuring out how to go to market. The franchise sales process is complicated. It has to taste right from the moment that somebody hears about your brand all the way through the discovery process. And if you want to continue to get sales, what was promised to these people before they were awarded the franchise needs to happen after they get awarded the franchise. So that consistency from the beginning all the way through to their operation of the business is critically important for you to really have excessive or consistent franchise sales. And part of it is definitely making sure that you've got the talented resources in all the right places so that they feel the support along the way, that there's not a gap inside of that. But what I think what the consultants do, to get right to your question, Zach, is they become a valuable and trusted advisor to a prospect. And because of that, they do the research on the concepts, and they can assess to the extent that this franchisor is going to operate in a way that's going to be beneficial to the franchise prospect. And when you're a new concept, if you've got 2, 3, 4, 10 units, there's not a lot of validation. You don't have a long trail of history out behind the boat that's going to give people a sense of what they can expect out of the business. So having that additional level of validation, having that additional level of endorsement is really critical for early brands, and consultants like to work with early brands for just some of those reasons.
One follow-up question to that, and Zach, I think you might have follow-up questions, but have you done anything to position differently? I know, Josh, for you, it's probably just showing the success of the business thus far, but in a COVID world, is there any tweaks that you've made with how you're going about franchise sales? I would presume that you're full force ahead in franchise development, but have there been any tweaks in either the sales process, obviously with some virtual discovery days, but have there been tweaks with how you're bringing it to market and how you're pitching and presenting and how you're having such success?
You want to take that first, Jeff?
Sure. So I would say that you've got to be COVID positive, and that doesn't mean that you have the virus, but every crisis is going to create opportunities, and crisis will accelerate trends. So what are the trends in your industry? I'm in the fitness business, and we've been closing deals consistently through this, which is counterintuitive to think. But how did we react? And what did our franchisees feel inside of the COVID response? First of all, as a leader, you've got to be available. You got to be accessible. You got to over communicate in this crisis. Rockbox, we didn't en masse close our studios. We were surgical about it. We shifted immediately with an online offering. We had our coaches. We didn't lay off a lot of people. Instead, we had our accountability and our nutrition coaching delivered over the FaceTime or Zoom directly. And as a result of that, 82% of our members continued to pay us because it was important that we were their fitness partners when studios opened back up. Today, with the exception of Scottsdale, I believe we're open. And I think San Diego is doing outdoor classes. But other than that, we're opening our 25th location right now. We had 5 launch in training last month. So, finding the opportunities. So what are the opportunities in fitness as a response to COVID? Well, number one, leases are more available. Non-franchised fitness companies are struggling. There's opportunities for great, talented staff out there right now. So if you look at what the opportunities are and you don't hesitate when faced with challenges, there's always going to be some opportunities inside of that. And in franchising, there's a lot of prospects now that are going to be looking for something to do because some industries were hit really hard and there's a lot of talent out there on the streets. So it's an opportunity, like Josh said, to really invest in your brand, bring on talent, take market share. So never let a good crisis go to waste. This is an incredible opportunity. If you choose to look at it that way, if you're going to climb under your desk and cover your head until it's over, then you probably don't need to be in business. So that's how we reacted to it. We reacted to it in a positive and assertive way, and we try to find ways where we could take market share and gain ground inside of the things that we do. And all of our businesses, we did get impacted because in the fitness concept, because of the things that we did with royalties to help our franchise owners in those months that they were really heavily impacted. But overall, we're very pleased with where we are, and we got a ton of leads coming in, and we're talking to great people. And now we think that there's more white space than there was. Boutique fitness was a bit of a wildfire going, 400% growth a year. And now it's like a bucket of water has been put on certain segments of it. So we're emerging from that, and we're being very positive about our future inside of this space.
And Jeff hit on an important thing. The leadership aspect is really where it all starts, and how you react as a franchisor to support your franchisees and your staff as well. And for our organizations, we initially, for the first 30 days of COVID, we hosted town halls 3 times a week and really, put our team out there to the franchisees to keep them up to date on everything. We brought resources from the industry into that to help franchisees understand things like the PPP loans, EIDL loans, everything that was available to them, the deferral on payments or skip payments with the SBA and stuff, which was a huge help for franchisees. But all of that stuff that you do plays a big part in the development aspect, because people speak about that in validation. And, for our brands, we run 3 validation calls a week, which gives candidates a big exposure to people, and they're going to hear the good, bad, and the ugly about the business. And then that's going to be a question that gets asked. So like Jeff said, you can't crawl under your desk and hide. But, just like Jeff, we fared very well. And I don't want to beat a dead horse on the question, because I know that you have so many more things you want to cover, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you for that. Zach, I think I might have cut you off. So if you had something else, feel free to pipe in. But the next topic that I wanted to talk about, I think both of you guys are tremendous operators. And so talk about how you've had to fine tune. I think, Josh, you kind of just alluded to it, through communication and leadership. But is there any other little nuggets of wisdom with how you fine-tuned operations to support franchisees during this time? Because there's definitely some headwinds, even though the business was up. There are definitely headwinds that you've run into. So operationally, how have you fine-tuned through the pandemic and beyond? I guess we'll leave it up to Josh. Do you want to kick it off on that topic?
Yeah, I think I can answer it in a little bit different way than the way you've asked the question, because again, our business didn't require a whole lot of shifts in the way that we were operating. I will say in Redbox Plus, one of the things that it did open up our eyes to is we were originally with Redbox Plus a B2B company. So we would go out and target contractors. We see about an 87% retention rate of the customers that we do business with on the B2B side. And when our contractors slowed down on some of their construction sites, we had to pivot quickly and start to target the residential sector. And what that really did is opened up our eyes to a whole nother world of clients that actually were even more profitable clients, single use rentals a lot of times, but we actually ended up going through an entire software change and migration through that process to open up online storefronts for our franchisees with contractor apps and everything, so that we would have an online storefront to be able to market, through, digital marketing and social media and things of that nature to target a lot more retail clients. And we've seen a big uptick on our online ordering so that our franchisees aren't having to answer a phone to take that order. And that was, one thing in that business. In our Monster Tree business, we've seen a big increase in a lot of our backlogs with our franchisees and seen a lot of growth. And as I said earlier in the call, that's really given the franchisees a higher level of confidence to make that next level investment into their business, to either add an additional crew or open up another location, whatever that might be within their business. So, for us, a lot of the help we've offered on both the businesses is just securing more avenues for financing and funding for them, setting up some additional lease programs, because we're seeing, again, explosive growth within the locations.
Nice. Jeff, anything to add on that topic, or any other things come to mind based on that?
I would just dovetail into that and say, as someone who's responded to every natural disaster over the period of 25 years, when a disaster happens or a crisis like a hurricane or COVID, the misinformation is everywhere. So when you're leading a group of disparate locations like a franchise system, it's critically important that you work extra hard to gather up the information and deliver accurate information. With respect to getting these loans, there was so much misinformation. I was on webinars and they would put an accountant on the webinar, and the information that was being put out was wrong and it was inaccurate. And how's it going to work, and what's actually going on? And what we learned in responding to disasters is you can't rely upon the news and what you hear or even the internet. You've got to go and see it for yourself. So like Josh, we started doing multiple calls a week, schedule standing calls, just so that our owners could have a voice of calm. We opened up a special online forum, threaded forum, and we seeded it with all the important topics, whether it be lease negotiation or the loan or employee safety or member safety. And we had threaded topics on all of those things. And then we really worked hard to get access to the best experts that we could and put those people in charge of sorting all those things out, and then just really provided that information in multiple channels so that our franchise owners could consume it, and it gets through. And then after a little bit, Josh, I don't know if you found this, but after a little while, it was talked out, and it was like, well, it's probably time to end these town halls 3 times a week because it's there's nothing new. So it really made a big difference in the validation piece of it, and they have to hear. They never, it was like we would say when we would teach how to give big estimates in Advanticlean, when you give the price, don't let your lip quiver. As long as your lip doesn't quiver, you're going to be fine. Say it with confidence. And it was the same thing here. You can't let people see you blink or sweat. So that's one of those times, leaders got to lead. You got to step up when this stuff happens. And that's what we did.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I'll say, Jeff, for the first time in my life, as a business owner, I remember having conversations with my wife when around mid-March, and I said, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm not in control because I'm supposed to be the captain of the ship here as a CEO of the organization. And, I don't have any access to greater information than what everyone else has. And so those calls that we were having was a lot of them were emotional support calls, just calming people down and letting them know we're working on this, that we're pulling it together. As more information comes available, it's getting to us at the same speed that it's getting to you as well. And after about 30 to 45 days, same thing, we just decided, we began to scale them back to where we phased them out after about a 60-day period.
Yeah, panic never helps. Panic never helps anything. And just slowing the game down a little bit, and over communicating it. And we were surgical in our approach to membership. And, you can assume everybody's going to be screaming. They want to cancel their, well, that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case at all. These people were in the middle of a fitness journey. They were stuck at home now. They wanted to engage. They just wanted us to provide service, and provide it in a different way. So I was very proud of what our team. Now, of course, we had to work double or triple time to deliver services in a whole new way, but we're better off for it. Our team came out with confidence. Our brand has survived across the board, and now we're in a position to take some of this white space where other people might have reacted differently.
Nice. Josh, one of the topics that you mentioned, you said that you had to pivot and you went kind of away from some of the commercial contractor type business, and you had to go discover a whole new market. Either that example or others across the business, marketing tactic wise, it's kind of a tough time to communicate with people because people are out of work and this and that and the other. But it sounds like both of you guys have leaned heavily into putting your message out there. But have you found anything marketing tactic wise that has been particularly effective during this time, or is it just slow and steady on the strategy that you already have? Maybe tweak the messaging a little bit, but anything marketing tactic wise that has been effective for you guys?
Well, no, for my brands, we took the time to really break down our customer acquisition strategy and see where we needed to shift the focus. So there was a lot of work done around that because we realized people are home now. And even as the school year is starting back up in some parts of the country, it's already started. Here in Eastern Pennsylvania, where I am, our kids go back the Tuesday after Labor Day, and it's all virtual. So people are still home. They're not traveling. They're not going out to restaurants. So they do have, the big concern was how is it going to impact the entire economy? And I know, no one has any explanation for what's happening in the stock market right now,
Yeah.
in a pandemic. But at the end of the day, what I can tell you from seeing it in the service space and being in the businesses I'm in, people have money and they're spending money. So, we haven't had to discount anything in our business. We've actually increased prices to control demand.
Wow. Jeff, anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think we all know marketing never rests anymore. It changes, it's dynamic, and it's not you make a decision on your yellow page ad once a year anymore and you hope that people call you. That's the way it used to be. And now it's every 90 every 90 days there's a new algorithm that comes out. You get immediate feedback on what your customers are looking at. So I think every business, at least that's talented at acquiring customers, is in a cadence of continual improvement and micro adjustments to their campaigns and their things that they're doing. So for us, it was nothing really different in terms of the way that we handled our marketing. We're always looking at it on a daily, weekly basis to see what's working. And knowing the customers were going to be at home was obviously something that we had to change our product. But I'll tell you what's really interesting is how we've chosen to increase our marketing spend, both on the franchise development side and on the consumer side. And people cannot wait to get out of, there's this latent demand right now. People have money and they are ready to get out of their house. And so we've launched across the board in Rockbox offerings, campaigns, some challenges that are kind of our table stakes for the way that we acquire customers, and unbelievable sales. I mean, really, it's crazy. So I would just encourage people to be aggressive right now, because to Josh's point, money's available. I have a friend who's an executive at Lowe's, and he said that they were going to hit their 3-year sales plan in 12 months. So think about that. I mean, everybody's going stir crazy, and they're looking for places to spend this money. I mean, how much gas have you spent in the last 90 days? Not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I've blown it once. Zach,
Yeah, right.
you have something?
Yeah, so I think that you guys are both certainly not strangers to the idea of M&A and, and buying and selling brands within franchising. You guys both alluded to it in your intro in multiple facets. So I just am kind of curious, what you guys are looking for as it relates to, good partners when you guys were going through that process of buying and selling brands, some criteria that you guys look into. Jeff, when you're looking and investing in a brand, and Josh, obviously you as well. Just kind of curious to hear that, because that's always what I love hearing from people like the two of you. It's just, everybody has a different criteria to it, and different industries you guys have your eye on throughout this as well.
You want to stab that first, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. So when you talk about partners, I can't go without mentioning Pat Gallagher with Boxwood Partners, who's a mid-market investment banker who really represented us in the sale of Advanaclean and did a tremendous job. I really can't say enough good things about the job that they did for us. And I'll say, there's a great book out there by Kevin Short called How to Sell Your Business for an Outrageous Price, or something like. Josh, did I recommend that to you? I don't know.
You didn't, but I'm gonna have to pick it up now.
Yeah. So it's like there's 4 things in there that it comes down to. It's number one, your business has to have a competitive advantage. So when you're business building, or your business buying, you need to look for a competitive advantage. There's got to be some white space or something different about the business. And you really don't need more than one. If you can have operational excellence across the board, great competency in the things that you need to do, as in the pillars of the, marketing and training and all of the things that a good franchisor does, technology, and then you have one competitive advantage. That's the first thing, is the competitive advantage. The second thing is you need to run a competitive process. The third thing is you've got to have great representation, because owners shouldn't probably do their own deals because they're going to mess them up. And then the fourth thing you got to have is an owner that can at least act like they don't care whether the thing sells or not, and be willing to walk away from it. So that's my advice to people, is to make sure that if you're looking to sell your business, find somebody like Boxwood, and get some representation. And then, when you're looking for partners, I mean, what I look for in people that I want to be in business is I look for an inspired leader, somebody that I want to meet on a Wednesday morning at 7:30 for a partner breakfast, and that we enjoy our time together, and we're thinking about, proactively about how we can innovate inside of a business. I mean, the older you get in life, the more important it is who you go through life with, period. And you really want to be in business with people that you are equally yoked with, and that have, and you know what? Here's what makes great partnership: diversity. You don't have to have the same goals across the board, because sometimes you need diversity inside of a business. And I don't think I was a really great partner early in my career, but I made it a point to become a good partner. And what does it take to be a good partner in business? If you look at Shark Tank or anybody else out there, I mean, these guys are partnered in hundreds of businesses, and they understand the value that they bring. They make decisions in a fact-based manner. They resolve conflicts in a healthy way, and they bring whatever it is, their special brand of value to a relationship. So when I talk to a ton of emerging brands, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is this somebody that 5 years from now that I'm going to want to be in business with, and why is that?
So at the IFA, I heard David, in one of David Barr's speeches, he was talking about how people make the difference, and it's 100% true. People make the difference, and to Jeff's point, when I'm looking, at an opportunity from an acquisition standpoint, it's the not only the owner and the founder, because again, their story is going to be extremely important in the growth of the business. But again, I want to work with somebody that I can get up every day and I enjoy working with. When I had the opportunity to acquire Redbox Plus, I could have acquired 100% of the brand. But when I met Jeff Matejka, it was like after spending 4 to 5 hours with him, on our initial meeting, which was originally scheduled for an hour and it rolled into 4 to 5 hours, because we just had that great of a conversation. I looked at him, and one of the questions I asked him were, what are your dreams for this brand? And he was so passionate about what he wanted to do. And his exact response to that was, I want to throw my dogs and my wife in an RV and want to travel around the country. I want to see franchisees in every town across the US. And, I don't want to be worried about the day-to-day of the business. And I said to him, I can help make your dreams come true, but I can only do it if you're involved. And I made a business decision that to me, it was going to be important to have him still involved, because he was the inventor of our patented product that we have in that business. And, same thing with the roofing business that I acquired. The founder's still involved in a minority position, because again, it's his baby. And as I said, people make the difference. And, just being able to continue to grow together. And like Jeff said, you don't have to have the same vision. Oftentimes the founders of some of these businesses, they have a big vision of where they want to take the business to, but they have no idea the path to get there. And so that's where guys like us really come into play, is that, we can break it down. We don't get intimidated by it. And we're willing to invest the capital, because it does take capital to make these things go the distance and get them to where they need to go. And just like Jeff, my expertise is in, emerging brands, primarily in the service space. I can take a brand that has 2, 4, 5 locations and get it to, 200 units in a very short period of time, because it comes back to that operational excellence and really putting the right systems and processes in place.
Love it. One question that I want to make sure that we ask, as we have, I think, 12 minutes left here. Jeff, tell us about your book, man. You wrote a book. Why did you write it? What's it about? Kind of what I've gathered from it. I haven't had the opportunity to read it. I did get to host you on the podcast, so it was great to talk about it. It's a practical way to make better decisions, and that's in the title of the book. I love the sports analogies that you've kind of weaved throughout the book. But what's the book, and what's it about, and why'd you write it?
I appreciate it. If you look at everything that I do, I'm about, I exist to help people and connect dots and just share what I've learned. And that's what lights me up. And the more that we can live inside of our purpose, the happier we are, the more fulfilled we are, and the more successful we are. So really what we're about at Dudan Partners, and what the book is about, it's about entrepreneurial encouragement. And if you're a young person today and you're really inspired to be in business, what are how do you train intentionally to become an entrepreneur? Like, what are the things that are important to you? So business is really, and life is about probabilities, and your batting average of the decisions that you make over time are going to determine the quality of your life and the success of your businesses. So great discernment is basically, the quality of your decision-making, a principled, effective decision-making methodology. So if I wanted to go about that intentionally, what are the things that I need to train on? If I want to be a better basketball player when I was growing up, I would say, all right, I got to do left-hand dribbles. I got to work on all of these different things to put my entire game together. So that's the concept of the business athlete and this book. So when you think about increasing your probabilities, you take things and you learn how to put them into models of thought. So as I accumulated things over time, like values, like the value-based, our values are what we must have and what we won't tolerate. So me to make the decision to franchise was because I wouldn't tolerate not being home for the next 20 years just in exchange for growing a national business. So how did that play into that decision? What are the other things that that you fundamentally work on to put into models of thought, so that when you're faced with a decision, you can think about the scenarios and the potential outcomes, and you can make the best possible decision over time. And as you know, good business decisions are creative. And the better you get at your decision making, the more you understand what your fundamentals are, what's important to you, what resources you have, what your skills are, what your team skills are, the better you can do in terms of making these decisions. So that's really what the book is about. And I really am about encouraging entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of personal stuff in the book, relationship equity, and why does it matter inside of a system? Because sometimes, right, Josh, things don't always go right in a franchise system. So what have you done to build and pour into that equity account so that when something doesn't go exactly right, you can burn a little bit of it off? How does your reputation matter? And does it matter? And because our names will go farther than we ever do. So just a lot of different things kind of wove into the stories and shared in such a way that people can start to think about building their models of thought using the things that are important to them in their life.
Yeah. Josh, I don't know. We haven't even chatted about this. I don't know if you're much of a reader, if you have any book recommendations or anything of that nature. But as you've kind of gone through this pandemic, probably working long hours, very busy, is there anything that you've done in your personal life, whether it's personal development, taking time for yourself, taking time for the family? How do you maintain the balance? And I actually hate that analogy because I think balance is sometimes kind of overplayed, but how have you kind of maintained order in this hectic time? Anything come to mind? Any tips for some of the folks that are burning the midnight oil?
Yeah, at some point you got to be willing to put it down, and you've got to really think to yourself, how do you spread your wings and really grow? I mean, Jeff's aha moment when he decided the franchise came when he missed a kid's sports game. For me, it was, I listened to all the people in Jeff's situation when I was, prior to even being married and thinking about having children. And one of the things I always said when I met my wife was, I will make sure that by the time we have our first child, I put ourselves in a position that we can spend the time together that we want to, and I can be there to help be involved in, all the activities that our kids are involved with. And, that's part of the reason why I began franchising in 2011 when my first daughter was born. It was within 4 weeks after she was born, I launched the Monster Tree Service, operating system. And it was really the beginning of that process, which took 12 to 18 months to put together before we could sell in 2013. And, that's a big thing. It's just, it's easy as an entrepreneur to just work yourself to death, but you really have to constantly evaluate, where are you really moving the needle, and not be afraid to say no. Because one of the hardest things that you'll do in business initially is learn how to say no. But once you learn how to do it, it feels really good. And you realize how much more you can get done when you do that.
Hey, Rye.
Yep.
So I read a great book I wanted to share. It's called The Inky Dinky Spider, and it's about this spider that has a long-range plan to get to a goal. And while he is overcome sometimes by the inability to accomplish his goal, he perseveres and is diligent and sticks to it and gets where he needs to go. But no, the book things are always funny to me. I saw somebody make a Humpty Dumpty reference in a call the other day. It's a great business book. This information is invaluable, and I appreciate you guys sharing it. And it's, I don't know if anybody in the audience has any questions, they can type it right in the box there. So let's assume that you folks either have your act together or you can keep a smile in the firmest grip. But for others, it's a lot more, people are struggling. They're having a tough time making it, just generating enough cash to make it. And honestly, if I would tell you what people have confided in me, like, it's keeping the rah-rah, we called it whistling in the dark, or Mary Kennedy called it whistling in the dark. But how do you inspire people in that way? Or what advice do you have for emerging brands that are, caught up in the struggle?
Seems like we have a question, Lane. We got a couple. The first one is from Mr. Butler in the crowd here. He asks, what is the best decision and the worst decision both of you guys have made as it relates to franchising? The worst decision I'm more excited for, because that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun.
For me, I would have to say, in honor of Zach Butler, the best decision I ever made was bring him in as a business partner on Mighty Dog Roofing, so that I can have a legend like Zach Butler on my development team that brings a lot of horsepower to continue the explosive growth. Jeff, what would you say was your worst decision?
I don't know. I'm struck. There's so many. I'm out of ink on my pad here, but I can say probably the best decision for me was exiting Evanaclean. It really has worked out well. You hear that sometimes people wander, they struggle, or they don't know what to do. And for me, it was a chance to really to do exactly what I wanted to do, and to help people, and to be wherever I wanted to be. So, that was probably my best decision in franchising, but there's so many, because it's a journey, right? It's 1,000 decisions. It's 1,000 decisions that you make to find success in a brand. And there's 1,000 paper cuts along the way that you're dealing with every day, and you're just slapping Band-Aids on. So it's hard to single one out.
Yeah,
but if I knew Zach Butler, he'd be my best decision too. I know I do better. Hey, Zach.
And I'll add for all the emerging brands are on a line. Truly for me, that the best decision I've ever made in franchising was early on with Monster Tree Service. We reached a point where we recognized that there was a lot of work that needed to be done to fix what we didn't know with a lot of the early adopters, and we actually got to a point where we had just shy of 40 franchise units and paused development for close to a 2-year period. And, that really gave us the time to work with our franchisees to get them the help and the support that they needed, and reevaluate what we were doing as an organization to support our franchisees and help them achieve the level of results that we were able to do at a corporate level with a corporate location. And one of the things that I always challenge my teams to really think about, and I would challenge you to do the same in your own business, is what can you do as a franchisor to help your franchisees focus on the things that make them money? And so in my businesses, that's sales and production. So if we can think about everything else, the things that make our franchisees money in the service space are sales and production. So if we can offer services and systems and processes to help in all the other areas, it's going to help them be much more successful within the business.
Excellent. Phyllis says, wow, what a great conversation. Thank you very much. And I agree with that. I want to go back to Lane's question, because it's very, very accurate, very relevant, very timely. What is your advice to folks out there? Maybe their business isn't doing so hot. They have cash flow problems. This pandemic has rocked their business. What is your advice to those folks? I know that's not necessarily an easy task to give advice, but what advice do you have for emerging franchisors out there?
My advice would leave your ego at the door and not be afraid to ask for help. There's so much information that people are willing to give to you. And, if you feel like you're stuck, or you're in a tough situation, ask for help, reach out to, people like Lane, and those, people that are influencers within the industry that can really, help maybe mentor you and coach you a little bit through some of the problems that you're having. Because believe me, we've all been in that situation. And I'm sure there's times where Jeff and his businesses prior to selling Evanaclean, where he looked himself in the mirror and had sleepless nights, and we all do. So don't ever think it was any easier for any one of us that did it ahead of you.
I agree 100%. If there's always a way to survive in a business, assuming that the business is, not, just the industry is not going away. So if you want to survive, you can survive. If you're not out living on the edge, that's where all the greatness happens. You're just taking up space. And I'll go to Brian Tracy, I think it was, who had a great quote. He said, the best direction to ride a horse is in the way that it's going. So if you've got your program going, you may need to slow it down. You may need to ask for help. You may need to get really creative about it. But if you can be calm in the pocket, you can survive through any anything, and you might have to adjust, you might have to learn, but stay the course. There's been over 25 years, there was at least 10 times where I'm just like, man, this stress is almost too much to bear financially, risk-wise, whatever it is. But you know, you look around the room, you look at the faces of the people that are on your team, and you're like, am I willing to bet my house on these people? And if the answer is yes, then you go forward into the jungle and you win. And then the last part of that Brian Tracy quote is, if the horse is dead, get off.
That's some great advice.
Guys, thank you so much for this. We're already at the top of the hour. I'll kick it over to Lane. Lane, do you have any final words as we round this out?
I'm really grateful because I actually think that there are a lot of folks in the category of struggling or trying to keep hope. And I think that you get a sense that these two guys are the caliber of the kind of relaunch pod mentors that will be involved with Springboard. And I'm going to ask you folks to participate and to sign up as quickly as possible so that we can accommodate you with like-minded folks that have a wide range of experience that will help you chart a course or meet the people that help them chart a course or identify a technology to move yourself forward. But sometimes you're just out of ideas, and a lot of ideas come from other walks of life and other businesses and other folks that are having a degree of success. So I appreciate you guys coming on. I know you have a lot on your plate and plenty to do other than this, and it's a great public service that you do that. We'll get all the thanks, unfortunately, not you. You have to settle for our thanks, but we're very grateful to you as a member of our franchise family and the larger extended franchise family. It's we did get lost in our prep call because we had to catch up because it's like family. So thank you guys. We'll let you go. I don't know, Zach, if you have any closing remarks, but that's all I have for this week, everybody.
Thank you, Lane.
No, nothing for me. Thanks for allowing me to be on and hanging out with all these great people. Looking forward to next week's guests. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Josh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you,
Bye.
Josh.
Bye-bye.